Sit down. Sit down.
Okay. Good evening, all. Thanks you for your patience. My name is Debbie Nabavian. I chair the Traffic and Transportation Committee for CB12. I like to call the meeting to order. I'm not sure we have quorum, so I don't know how that nets out. But we don't have reso items tonight, so I think we can just proceed. I just want to taking a look at who all we have tonight. From the committee in the room, we have James Bosley, Jody Hearson, Jim Berlin is here but stepped away for a moment. And I see Mary Anderson is here with us online, also a committee member. Just taking a scan if we have some of you lost in the attendee list. Leo Jimenez, let me get you. Here we go. Leo, it sort of feels like I don't actually have the ability to promote you, and Paula stepped out for a second. So when she comes back, we'll get you back up. If you can take just even brief notes, that would be helpful. And we'll get you again promoted as soon as we can. So I have tonight we have there was supposed to be sort of 1.5 items on the agenda, and I'm having to switch around the half part. So tonight we have Dream Charter School here to speak about a BSA that they have outstanding with respect to the Radio Hotel. And that BSA relates to school use at that location. And they are visiting several of the committees, transportation being one of them. I thought maybe on a last minute basis, I might be able to get some of the charters from the northern tip of Manhattan to come in, which have had some drop off and pick up challenges, which I don't necessarily think to map to Dream Charter, but I thought we could kind of hear from everybody and how they're approaching things at the same time. But I got to people kind of late, admittedly, so we will likely have a little bit more of a conversation about everything that's going on around 218th, between 215th and 218th Street, hopefully in March. For people that, I mean, I just guess by way of update, because I know it's come up, I think during committee time earlier in the school year, that Zeta Charter School, which had opened on 218th, well, I guess they go 218 to 219, east of Broadway, that since they opened this school year, it was sort of creating a backup where there hadn't been before, just because you were creating more westbound traffic on 218th, heading towards Broadway. And they had some barricades up which weren't coming down. So they got back to me at the last minute as well, saying they wouldn't be able to come tonight because I got to them so last minute, but that they're saying the barricades are coming down as appropriate 3 times a day. So they're allowed to go up 3 times a day and coming down. So hopefully we'll be able to have more of a discussion just about what's happening up there, and is there any room for kind of making things a little bit better. But that'll
exactly is this that I missed?
So I was hoping, even though that's not the conversation that's going on with Dream Charter School at 181st. So hi. Nice to see you.
In the wrong meeting.
I was like, I think that maybe he also had reason to stop in on cannabis.
Yeah, sorry.
Please sit down. It's nice to see
Signs
you.
everywhere, they're not seeable, I guess.
Yeah, no, I just, we walked into that meeting, I assumed it was going right into this one.
No, you haven't missed anything yet. So
Okay, great.
it's so nice to see you.
Yeah,
Thank you
sorry
for
for
coming by. So I was thinking maybe I would just kind of have all charters, operating all schools, so getting the whole group from Amber and School in the Square and Zeta and whatever, but I admittedly, and that's on me, I was contacting people with not much time to spare and get on their
Talking about
calendars.
Opening and closing streets and up and down, what was that all that?
Zeta has been doing that this school year,
Where
that they
is it?
barricade 218th Street.
And this is the one that's in the old Catholic school or whatever it was?
No,
No?
that's Amber. But what's happening is, and then I do want to move on to Dream Charter School, and then we can come back to this later, is that it used to be, if you imagine yourself on 218th Street, west of Broadway, imagine that you've got like the Columbia Fields on your left, you're heading towards Broadway, you get to Broadway, maybe you're going to the Bronx, you turn left, life is good. But now that you have all this traffic coming from 218th from the other side of the intersection, because a barricade only applies to eastbound traffic. So people are coming out westbound to Broadway from the east, from Zeta, which is over by like 9th Avenue.
Hmm.
And now, so like all the people that used to make the left turn going towards the Bronx without anybody trying to come straight and having to wait, now like one car gets through. So now it backs up sometimes going towards Seaman,
Yeah.
towards Indian Road. So the whole area has gotten complicated. And there will be an additional School in the Square. It's going to take some space in that Amber building, which was the former Catholic school. But anyway, hopefully Amber and School in the Square and maybe even Zeta can come next month and we can talk about it. But
Let me just comment for 1 second that some of that issue can be done by signal timing and turn signals and all that. Which we can,
that might be, or yeah.
I mean, maybe you might need a
and-
human there. Imagine.
Exactly. And
Human, you know them? They're better than when you know, sometimes.
okay. So, but the main thing on the agenda. Oh, shoot. Wait, did Paula leave again?
I'm right here. What do you need?
Can you promote Leo Jimenez?
I already did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, David. I'm sorry, everyone. I have a flu, so
By the way. before you-
Oh my God, I'm just getting over it. In fact, I'm like, yeah, I'm just getting over it. It's the worst this
it's
year.
the worst. Yeah, I've been nonstop since for the last 5 days. So
Yeah, no, this is like my first day, like out and about. Okay, so
I'm gonna give you the hosting abilities now so you can watch the stack and I made you a co-host in case something goes wrong. You never know.
thank you, Paula. So I appreciate you all coming, and I know this is the first of several committees. I'm just gonna say, and some might disagree with me, so don't yell at me, commit, but this is how I feel. We're probably the least important in that, the crux of the BSA is about school use. We have actually seen a BSA at this location when Wynn was considering, well, adjacent, not at your location. But at that time, there was an analysis about whether a school use, and again, only yards away from this one, would require a more full transportation analysis. And it was deemed no, that it wasn't, it was like not the degree that requires like the deeper, like the full treatment. There are so many transportation options, which you know better than I do, at your property. And I also, the other thing that to me is interesting about you guys is that, you won't be in the building if you get this approved, you won't be there for a year, am I right? But you're operating elsewhere during this year, meaning that if we want to understand things like how many people are arriving versus public transportation versus car drop off, we're going to know that pretty solidly because you'll actually have data, where sometimes we're looking at these things and we don't have any data, or we don't have really accurate census data. So I sort of feel like a year from now, if we have any concerns, like we can actually look at data to sort of address that. So, we're interested to hear these things just because, as you've heard, we have had issues in places that were more cut off and less accessible to public transportation options, with car drop-offs. So again, I'm really, pleased to have this opportunity just to check in and then figure out like if we need to check in again a year from now, et cetera. But I don't want you guys to worry, because again, I don't think we're going to have a specific like DOT will not have a requirement, or however that gets contracted out. That is sometimes the case in some BSAs in this instance. Does that make sense? So I'm going to hand it off to you, and if you can just introduce yourselves. Hello.
Sure, happy to do so. So, we can do a quick introduction of ourselves. I actually have a presentation I can do for everybody as well. For the first time, or format to do, but I can give you a stick that we can put it in. Feel visuals always help out.
Sure, that'd be great.
Sure.
I might need the AV squad to help me, but I think I can handle it. You never know with me.
By the way, can you hear me, Ray Tillman? I can't get onto the picture, but perhaps I certainly can hear you very well, though I can't see you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
If you want to throw this in there, this is just so I can control it. We don't have to flip the screen up rather than you have to flip all these lines.
All right, let me just see if I've got.
Sure. So let's get set up. Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Wu. I'm the developer of the Radio Hotel and Tower. So I'm here to talk about the project and also introduce the school, talk about some of the traffic concerns that everybody had from CB12, address any questions that you might have. With me is Nick from American Dream Charter. So Nick is the vice principal or chief of staff of American Dream. And then Jeff from Phil Habib's office, who is our traffic consultant, who will put together all the information for the DSA. Also put together some information here that are on these slides.
Sorry, I don't have two.
Oh, okay. If that's the case, if you don't mind.
I'm just gonna,
Yeah,
just,
okay.
Yeah.
You have to share your screen.
do this all day, yet here I am not doing it. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Is it possible to do the full screen?
Yeah, sorry, one second.
Often F5, right?
Wait, I gotta get this.
Hit F5, the F key. There.
Sorry, I'm not always this. There we go.
Do you mind if I just click it over here so we don't have to do it back
Yeah.
and forth? Right. Okay, so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time introducing the project. Listen, I know we've been around for a few years, but a lot of people don't know what we developed and why we developed it. So I think it's always interesting for people in the community to hear the story behind what we did. So very quick introduction for Youngwood Associates. We're a real estate development firm here in the city. My father started the firm back in the 70s. We've been in New York for 40 plus years. We've done 60 some projects. We're sort of known as what you would call innovative developers in the city. During that time, we've established a track record of doing a lot of different developments throughout New York. Some of these you might recognize, obviously the top one, our most interesting and our proudest project, the Radio Tower and Hotel, but we've done everything from Pier 57 over on the west side of Manhattan. We bought the old AIG headquarters down at 70 Pine. We bought 85 10th. We did 211th. So we've done a lot of different development projects throughout the city. One such example of something that I think is very similar to 2420 Amsterdam is the Bronx Post Office. This was an old post office that we redeveloped in the South Bronx on 149th Street. It was actually built during the New Deal in the 1940s. So it's a fascinating sort of architectural beauty, really. We went in there, we rehabilitated the entire post office, we put a restaurant on top, and we're actually leasing it as office space right now. And so for us, whenever we're looking at a development, we always like to do one thing in particular is when we buy a site, we do not have an expectation that we are going to impose an idea on that site. So what do I mean? A lot of times when you see a developer, they'll go and they'll buy a pad and they have this preconception that what we're going to do is we're going to do a multifamily unit here, we're going to do office building here, we're going to do something. Now, obviously, a lot of this is zoning restricted. But for us, what we always try and do is you try and inventory people's opinions around the neighborhood and try and figure out, can you build into a demand that's there? And so we use that idea behind Washington Heights. And we selected Washington Heights very specifically because we thought it was a very interesting neighborhood that was transforming in a lot of ways. And so if you look at, the Heights, you look at all the sort of things that are happening along 181st Street, all the new kind of retail that's coming in there, we just feel like this neighborhood is really changing pretty quickly. And so for us, whenever we're looking at a development site, design is very important. To us, design is everything. So when we built this building, I know a lot of people here haven't had the benefit of talking to me, but we actually had an idea that we wanted to create sort of a jewel in the Manhattan skyline. And so we went out and we sourced a Dutch architect by the name of MBRDV. So the head of MBRDV is a very famous architect by the name of Whitty Maas. He's done everything, everywhere, stadiums in Europe, buildings in China, government works in Germany, everything, everywhere. He's a very famous internationally renowned architect. And we told him, you can do more in terms of impacting New York City by building up in the Heights than you can doing something downtown. So this was his first project in New York City. This is actually my favorite building of his. This is a multifamily building that he did in Rotterdam. This is real. This is not a rendering. What this is it's in the middle is a market. And then all these multifamily units are all around it. He was telling me the printing of that image, when he built this originally, they didn't have graphics cards that could get that kind of resolution to that scale. So it took them 30 days to render that entire interior image before they actually put it up over there. And so our idea actually behind developing the project was, this is the first image he ever sent me. What it is it's a compilation of the different buildings around the area, literally stacked on top of each other. And so what we were trying to do was, in some respects, like respect the actual fenestration and the neighborhood feel and characteristic of the brick and the brownstones around the area, and layer it on top of each other in terms of the massing. The only difference is what we did was we actually used glazed brick. So if anybody's ever been near the building, you'll notice it's not a curtain wall facade. It's not panel or stamp. It's actually glazed brick that we sourced from Spain. The reason for that is we had Winnie walk around that entire neighborhood along 181st Street. And what we had him do was take basically color palettes around that area from different awnings that he saw, just different colors. And we took that in and we actually incorporated it into the design. So the building in and of itself is supposed to be contextual, even though it's not, right? Even though it looks kind of like a Lego building in the middle of this neighborhood. The design idea really originated from trying to be local and trying to be contextual and build into it. And so what is the Radio Tower and Hotel? Well, it's really four things. It's a hotel, 221 keys. It's an office building, it's an event space, and it's a retail area. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen the new bank going over in the corner of 181st Street and Amsterdam Avenue. This is the office building. So this is the office entrance. We spent a lot of time on the design trying to make it so that it could be an elevated entrance for a building where people could be proud to be, right? What we were seeing a lot of times when we were walking around the neighborhood for offices, you're seeing a doctor's office on the first floor of a multifamily building, right? Or you're seeing, some not kind of class A office building where, lawyers on the second floor or third floor, there's an accountant over there. For us, we felt like there was a desire for people to have higher quality space in the area. And that's why we built what we built. And that's why we designed what we designed, specifically because we felt like it was going to be a draw for the people in the neighborhood. Just another rendering of the interior of the lobby. And our intention for the office building is, aside from the school, is to try and bring in professionals. And so, obviously COVID has been very difficult for the office market in general. I'm sure everybody has read all the different headlines about what is going on, but it is still our intention to go in here and build out this office space to allow for that doctor's office, to allow for that lawyer, to allow for that accountant who's in this area to come in here and lease out space and feel proud. Walk into a lobby that you like, to have clients come in and feel like you're a professional, go up an elevator and see a view. That's really one of a kind in New York City. These are just, these are the actual office spaces right now here for people who've not actually been inside. More renderings. This is a view from the top of our office tower up on the 23rd floor. And up over here, what's so interesting about the building itself is everybody here who lives in the Heights knows this, right? You guys are located on the highest point topographically of New York City. So you sit 300 feet in the air on ground level. That's a 25-story building, by the way. This building is another 25 stories, so you're 50 stories in the air. That's why you're getting these view corridors. From the top of the building, you can see all the way down to Central Park. And if you were to flip this camera around and look this way, you can actually see all the way up to White Plains. Fascinating view. Parking too as well. We realized that the community had a need for parking, so we have a parking lot over there. It's available to the public. Anybody can come in there, anybody can use it. 170 spaces in building. Retail and then restaurant. The restaurant, this is another thing that we did. So we know that this area and this community is very Dominican, and we wanted to respect the fact that this community was this culture, and we wanted to make sure that we were going to allow them to feel proud when they came in here, having their friends and family come and visit the hotel and visit the restaurant. So we specifically sourced halal. I don't know if everybody's ever been to this restaurant in the hotel. We actually flew down to the Dominican Republic, interviewed 5-10 different people to try and figure out who was it who we felt like was the strongest operator with the strongest brand who could bring Dominican cuisine to New York City and specifically to this building. And we wanted them to come in and elevate it to make it something where it's not just a neighborhood spot. It's also something where if your friends and family are visiting into the Heights, they can come over and taste Dominican food like they've never had before. And that was the idea behind Halal. This is the entrance to the hotel. If no one has ever been in before. That chandelier is actually a piece of artwork that we commissioned from a Dominican artist down in Santo Domingo. And we asked them, do something that sort of captures the neighborhood. And so this was like a fun design motif that it came up with. These are some dishes from the restaurant. This is the interior of the restaurant as well. This is not a rendering. This is an actual shot. And then this is our courtyard. So our courtyard is a public space. We created this really to kind of be the heartbeat and lifeblood of the entire project. The idea is anybody can come in here. So it is open to the public. A lot of people don't know that. I've talked to Isidro about this. I've talked to a lot of people about that. I'm trying to figure out more and more ways to market this to the community, but I want people to come in here and activate the space. Frankly, not enough people are in here. I don't know why. And we've been trying to advertise and market it, but nobody knows about it. I don't know what it is. You know, we put it on social media. We say courtyard is open, come in, enjoy. We'll do a better job this year, I promise.
Do you have music events there?
We do. It depends on the night. So a lot of times we had live bands out over there. We even had Zumba classes that are open to the public too. The Zumba classes were very popular. We've been brainstorming, frankly. This is a little bit of a side note, but we've been brainstorming a lot about what can we do this year to bring more people in and create more engagement with the space. But please.
I'm also on the land use committee, so I'm involved with this.
Ah, perfect.
And I also made it my business to actually visit your lobby and look around and saw the public space through a door.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give me the vibe that it was public, so that made me part of it.
We were thinking about putting a sign on 181st Street. Maybe that'd be one way to do it.
Because isn't that
I don't
the
know.
public place, where people can, have their coffee and their cake and stuff? Then, like you said, that they have to know about it. And then the other piece, and this is totally personal, my cousin is coming to visit and he will be staying in your hotel.
Very glad to hear. That's why we built it.
Just for my cousin.
Well, for people to come in, really, I mean, I'll spend a couple seconds on this one point because I think it is important. Listen, the reason we built the hotel, and I talked about the office tower, but the reason we built the hotel is, we owned this site for a lot of years before we actually started the development. And like I said, we spent a lot of time talking to as many people as we could in the neighborhood. And what we found is north of 145th Street, you have two hotels. That's it. You have the Edge Hotel and you have whatever you would want to consider as across the street from us, like Hotel Hennessy, right? So, we spent time, we talked to Chiba University when we went over there and we were talking about different ideas on what we could build. And we mentioned to them, would a hotel be something that you would be interested in? And what they said was, absolutely. This is a funny story, is they brought a bunch of visiting rabbis and they walked into the Hotel Hennessy, I think it's called, across the street. and they saw that hourly sign, they turned right around and left. They can't put rabbis in there, right? So we knew from those conversations immediately, like there is a demand in over here, right? So here's the stat. Here's one way to think about it. North of 145th Street in the entire upper Manhattan area, you have about 250,000 people, right? So it's roughly the size of Buffalo, roughly the size of Syracuse, more or less. Total number of hotel rooms that you have is 100. You have 100 hotel rooms, with excluding ours, in that area. City of Buffalo has about 3,000, right? Syracuse is about 32. So that supply demand gap is why we built what we built, specifically for things like that. People are visiting in the area. You have no place to stay. Even people going to Columbia, parents, where do they stay? They stay in Jersey, stay in the Bronx, or they stay down south, right? So there's nowhere for them to stay, and that's why we built the hotel. Please, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Well, I was just curious, is there access from the street to this?
There are.
Or do you have to come through the office?
No, so you have to go through doors, right? We can't just have them open. That's a code issue. It's what is it called? It's an atrium code, I think it's what it's called. So you can't just keep the doors open entirely. They have to be automatically shut. But they're all glass. So if you see the design of the building, I don't know if there's a later on slide. I literally created the design of the building to be as open as possible. I didn't need to do it. I created a 4-story glass atrium along Amsterdam Avenue, and I lit it up so that you can see into the courtyard. It's like the whole idea behind it. Please.
2 questions. Are you getting many events coming here?
We are. Yeah.
Is the hotel busy?
The hotel is very busy.
Good.
Which we're happy about.
Because the Edge gets a lot of people from Columbia Presbyterian with families going to visit patients. This is more, I spoke to your manager when I was there 3-4 months ago. She said, we get a lot of wealthy Dominicans coming to visit family, and they stay at your hotel.
Yep.
And not so wealthy, but it's a great benefit because they had no other place to go before other than to crash at his place.
Well, excuse me. I'll show you in a second the hotel and design behind it, but absolutely, we get a lot of people come to the hotel. Thankfully, the hotel is very busy.
Good.
For the events, we get a lot of community events, right? So we get a lot of bar mitzvahs, we get a lot of bat mitzvahs, we get birthday parties. I think we're getting our first quinceañera this year.
What?
Quinceañera this year.
Okay.
We've gotten weddings, some corporate events, but all that kind of stuff.
Good.
And I'll quickly go. I know I'm spending too much time, so I'll go faster. But this is the event space very quickly. This is a wedding, I think, that we were setting up over here. That's the event space over here. So we have a terrace that we've enclosed with a retractable roof. This is the hotel. Just very, very quickly. The rooms, I wanted to point this out. So room-wise, what we did was 50% of the rooms are what they call micro hotel rooms, which are, do I have a good shot of them? Probably not. Okay. They're 150 square feet. They're this, right? Like they're this big. Effectively, they're a bed, a sink, and a shower. Tiny. So the reason that we did that is that we're not trying to create the Four Seasons, right? We're not coming in here and trying to charge $1,000 a night, regardless of how much, how beautiful we think it is, how much time we spend on the design. We're not trying to do that. What we're trying to do is create an affordable product that people can be proud of. Like I had an option. I could have spent way less money doing a Best Western over here. Frankly, people were telling me to do that. But A, that's not me. And then B, I don't think the community wants a Best Western. I think what you guys want is a boutique hotel that speaks the language of aesthetics and beauty, and also something that you can be proud of. Now, if you do that, if you spend a lot of money and time in design and on finishes, it gets expensive. So how do you counteract expensive? You have to go small. So what we did was you shrunk the room sizes so that we can make it relatively affordable. So these rooms, listen, it depends on the time of the year and the demand, but they'll go as little as $90 a night, right? So, I mean, I think this year, usually January and February are very low months of traffic for hotels. So you can get a room at this hotel under $100 a night right now. And that was always the idea. This is just a picture of the hotel. And just as a summary, ultimately the development that we were trying to do was a place where you can live, work, and play. It's always the design behind this project. So very quickly, I'll let Nick introduce the American Dream School.
Everybody, my name is Nick Gallagher, as Brian mentioned. I'm the chief of staff for the American Dream School. Our school has been open in the South Bronx, in the Mont Haven neighborhood of the South Bronx for 10 years. And our esteemed leader, Melissa Melkonian, who's online, she's our executive director. She founded the school to support the immigrant population of the South Bronx. So our academic model is dual language Spanish-English. Spanish is one of our core subjects at the school. And that is really to retain and cultivate and cherish a lot of our community's heritage. And so we're really excited to bring that model to this super dynamic neighborhood with this elementary school, and we hope to find a home at the radio tower.
So very quickly, just to give an idea of what the proposed project is it's a K through 5, 450 students in total. Enrollment will start in December of this year for kindergarten, first grade. And then it'll ramp over the subsequent 4 years, adding 1 grade in every time. So second grade the next year, third, fourth, fifth. The total amount of area is roughly 40,000 square feet, 39,385 exactly. And one thing to keep in mind is that it's actually a modification of a previous approval. I know you guys have been talking about schools beforehand. We were talking for a long time to School in the Square to come in here. And so we'd actually been in a BSA application with them for a high school. We ended up pivoting, and now we're working with American Dream to putting in a school that's K through 5, which I feel is a little bit more contextual for what we're trying to do at the building. And so Jeff, if you don't mind, Jeff can kind of talk a little bit about the overview of the study that we did and the neighborhood.
I have a quick question first.
Please.
So what floors are you thinking they're gonna be on?
So the entrance is going to be on the ground floor. So there's going to be
181.
puts it right on 191, about 3 doors down. We'll show you in the sort of rendering where it is. And then it'll be the second, third, fourth, and fifth floor of the building.
So just for format.
Mhm.
From here, because now we're gonna let you present, then committee can ask questions, and then we'll go to non-committee members, like,
Sure.
but before we go there, Leo, do you want to unmute? You had something?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you guys for the for the start of the presentation. Will the school have their own separate entrance?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so let them lay it out, and then then we can circle back.
Okay.
Anything missing?
Right, so good evening, my name is Jeff Rubin. I'm an urban planner, I work for a firm called Philip Beeben Associates, and we are retained by the developer, property owner, and it just so happens that I do also live in Community District 12, as I mentioned to some of you earlier. So our firm has a couple of roles in the project. One is we are preparing the environmental assessment statement, which is sort of, looks at the effects of the project and is required as part of the BSA application. And then related to that, and I think this is true of every school, there's always concerns about transportation access and safety. And, this site presents a lot of opportunities, and it also presents some issues that have to be addressed, I think is the best way to say it, in terms of safety and access. So just to remind ourselves, we're talking about the southwest corner of 181st Street and Amsterdam Avenue. The site was formerly just to go back to the history for a very quick moment. It was what, a gas station, I believe, back in the day. And so, but now, as Brian's been talking about, there's a building there, and we studied what is the effects of putting in a school into a portion of the building as has just been described. And just to give some context here, one of the good things about this site is that there is a lot of transit. Here, there's one train, a few blocks to the west, there's a train a little bit further to the west. There's bus routes on 181st Street and on the avenue. A lot of bus stops. So as I said, and if we sort of zero in on the issue of safety, we know there's kind of a couple of components of it. One is kind of the world sort of outside the school. And then the other is sort of the interface of the school with the public sidewalk. So, and on this slide, we kind of lay out some of the issues we're going to be talking about, but since we're going to go through each one of those issues that's on the screen, we're just going to move right ahead. So I think one of the biggest concerns for safety for the school, and that's, again, for any school, but I think these folks recognize it, is getting students to school every day in a safe manner. And so our firm has been working with the team here to sort of identify issues like the school is going to be working with the students and their families to identify what are the recommended routes that people take to get to the school. Things like training for the students and their families, practicing with the children to show them, where you need to walk and not walk to safely get dropped off, whether they're being dropped off by foot or by a car or by a school bus. So these are some of the issues. So this shows a site plan, and the next few slides are on the site plan, but I'll start here to say our firm has prepared a safety plan for this school. We've submitted it to the Board of Standards and Appeals, and they've shared it with New York City DOT. It's under review by those agencies. So everything we're talking about right now, just as you folks are kind of looking at it and understanding it and giving us feedback, the same thing is going to happen with the agency. So while we think it's we put a lot of thought into the plan and we think we address everything, it's still, it's still a plan that's under review. But one of the key things that we are proposing here, and I think some of this goes back to some of the prior experience with this site, is there is a need for a designated drop-off area, because even though the school will do everything it can to encourage students to arrive by foot with their parents if necessary, we know some parents are going to drop off by car no matter what. And so the school and we work together, and we're proposing a drop-off lane on the west curve of Amsterdam Avenue between 181 and about 2/3 of the way down the block. I think one of the big emphasis here is nobody wants parents dropping off kids on, I'm sorry, did I say 181? I meant Amsterdam Avenue. But nobody wants cars dropping off children on 181st Street, because there's an active bus stop in front of this building. And I think New York City DOT has previously shared concerns about potential for conflicts between dropping off a parent dropping off a child and the operation of the bus service. So it's very important. There's going to be a lot of emphasis on education with the parents, with the children, to really ingrain in them the idea that the drop off should be on Amsterdam Avenue.
So I'll say two things over here that I think are important. One is, someone mentioned the Wynn Charter School for a while back, and we had conversations extensively with them when they were going through their BSA approval for all the reasons that the bus lane created sort of those logistical issues on drop off for. Their proposal to us at the time was they wanted to use our frontage along Amsterdam Avenue or even potentially along 180th Street in order to have drop off for children. We couldn't give that to them, right? Because that's our property frontage. And so, a major difference between the Wynn Charter School and us, even though the physical separation between the entrances of where Wynn was going to be versus where we are going to be is that we control all the block front. And so for us, the optionality in being able to say, you can use this area along Amsterdam Avenue was not available to them. I think ultimately that's why it became too much of an issue for them, because they couldn't figure out a drop-off plan solely along 181st Street. And we're not proposing one along 181st Street, by the way. There's a bus lane right there. There's no way you can do that, right? So the proposal here is to have everybody drop off along Amsterdam Avenue. The second thing I'll mention that's important is this was a design choice. It actually ended up working out in favor here. Is you'll notice that the sidewalk along 181st Street to 180th Street along Amsterdam is wider than all the other blocks. The reason for that is we actually set the building back about 15 feet. So it was an architectural choice, actually. The reason for that is that if you're ever along Amsterdam and you're looking at the facade of the building, it's flat along the bottom part. The reason why it's flat is there's actually a sky exposure plane up on the top, on that top floor, that we effectively built to and built straight down. And that meant that you set back the building by 10 feet. We did that because we thought it would actually do two things. I liked that design a little bit more, but the other thing was it gave a sense of grandeur, right? Like it's a wide street. There's a impression when you get off of there entering into the hotel. It also just allows for just much more sidewalk. And so if there's a drop-off plan involving anything along Amsterdam Avenue, you just have a lot more real estate to work with, right? In terms of physical space. Sorry, Jeff,
Yeah,
please.
no problem. And I think a couple of things I want to point out here, just to make sure, I think you all can see, but it's worth mentioning. So this map is oriented with north sort of to the right, Amsterdam on the bottom, 181st Street on the right, 180 on the left. One of the current conditions here is that this curbside lane that we're proposing for our school drop off and pickup lane is already no standing anytime parking regulation zone. So one of the good things is that we're not proposing to take away anybody's parking.
Oh, it always has been, by the way. So this was always a gas station, right? So when it was a gas station for 60 years, no one could ever park there. And so when we actually went through the approval process to get this done, we petitioned the city to keep that existing condition the same. So no one can park here. It's
Yeah.
all loading.
And so there's essentially the school wants to put its, drop off zone in what is already kind of by the parking regulations intended for that kind of activity. No standing under the current regulations means you can drop people off. And I think, this will be to be discussed with New York City DOT, exactly whether they would make it formally a school loading zone, but it's comparable to the existing condition. It's unlike, I mentioned I live in the neighborhood, I live on Fort Washington, and I live just south of the Subsets Academy, which has been a big issue because there's parking along Fort Washington Avenue. There's only one lane in each direction. And so I know that when drop-offs occur there, there's always concern that people can't drop off in the curbside lane because there's cars parked there. If they are using the moving lane, then they're blocking, say, the M4 bus, et cetera. So here, luckily, we do have the opportunity to have the drop-off along the curbside where you're not taking away anybody's street parking. And, we don't want people drag racing down Amsterdam Avenue, but at the same time, we're not obstructing the flow of Amsterdam Avenue in the same way as you would have in Fort Washington. Obviously, there will be cars pulling in and pulling out, but as sort of a condition goes, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and one thing to remember, sorry, Jeff, one thing to remember is both to the south of us and to the north of us on the west side of Amsterdam Avenue, there is parking allowed. So, I've driven by here a lot of times. What ends up happening is if you're going south along Amsterdam Avenue, right on 182nd to 183rd, you just have parked cars all over there. So that lane does open up, right? And so it does open up basically an extra lane over there where nobody's parked. And then you have to pull back in immediately because once you get to 180th, there's parking along there. So it's basically just a free area. Now we do have cars that are there. A lot of it is hotel loading and things like that. So what ends up happening is that just empty for the most part. So people are, we created it for this purpose, for a drop off at the hotel.
I'll point out a couple other things. So the school entrance is going to be around the corner of 181st, but we recognize that there's going to be a need for having sort of school staff on the sidewalk. And Nick can probably talk about this, what we have planned here and what their experience has been in their existing school. But there will be people in a sense shepherding the students from the Amsterdam Avenue drop-off area, sort of around the corner to the school. And I think that there's just an awareness that that's just something that they're going to have to be very proactive about. And I think I should also add, Nick can talk a little bit more maybe about the catchment area that they anticipate. Either that we know there will be some auto drop-off, we want it on Amsterdam Avenue. There's also an expectation that there'll be approximately one bus, that some students will be bused. But it's a relatively low number. And so we're anticipating one bus in the morning. And then the dismissal in the afternoon is a little staggered because some students leave at the end of the school day and then some stay around for after school programming. So the busiest time at this location is going to be roughly in the 7 to 8 a.m. hour, more or less. Because that's when everybody arrives, right? Everybody starts the school day at the same time. Not everybody leaves the building at the same time in the afternoon.
Well, just one clarifying point on that. We are awake. I have two kids in lowest or whatever you call it, kindergarten and under. And I'm very well aware of all the traffic that is caused as a result of parents dropping people off. And so our school has done this thing where they stage the drop off. And I know American Dream is going to be doing the same thing as well. So they're staging drop off in the morning. So that 7 to 8 window is 2 groups coming in, right? It's not just everybody coming in at one time arbitrarily between 7 and 8. It is going to be fixed times that they're coming in. And the idea behind that is we're gonna work with Nick and everybody to make sure that we're making it so that the staging of people being dropped off along Amsterdam Avenue and arriving over here is as minimal as possible, or is coming in spread out throughout that time rather than all at once, right? You don't want 40 cars in at one time. You want 15, 15, 15, right? You want it staggered in as much as possible.
And I think that another thing, just a little, piece of data to throw in here, is that blue zone along Amsterdam Avenue is about 150 to 160 feet long. So there is an ability to accommodate multiple cars at one time. You know, as Brian says, they're going to have to work with the parents and work with, I think you have some programming ideas to sort of stagger the arrivals. Because there is an awareness that there is some real estate to work with here, but at the same time, you also have to work with the other dimension, which is time.
Is the oval where the school entrance is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I think, I mean, we're happy to go through the numbers here, but like I said, we're looking at one school bus a day. We're looking at our projections are, and this is best estimates. I think you alluded to the fact that, you never really know until whether we're being too conservative. We try not to be under conservative, but, we do our best. But we're estimating approximately about 42 parents dropping off children, each morning. And so that's, 42 cars over the course of 1 hour that have to be staggered. And then, as the school implements it, I'm sure they're gonna have to sort of also see how that works out in practice. But there is a lot of positives here in terms of having some curb space to work with. And then I don't know if we have anything else we want to touch on, Brian, on the slides.
Well, I mean, we could spend a little bit of time talking about the way that we intend to have the drop-off work. So I briefly mentioned before, stage drop-off in the morning, right? At least 2 periods will they'll come in. Keep in mind that we intend to have a ratio of about 15-1 for drop-off. In other words, so let's back up for a second. The vast majority of people and kids will be walking here, right? This is a neighborhood charter school. So something like 80% of the kids are anticipated to be very close in proximity. They'll be walking. For the ones who are taking public transportation, that's self-explanatory. Like we just said before, if they're taking the bus, so they're dropping off literally right in front. One train is 2 blocks away, a train is 4 or 5 blocks away. So they'll be walking down 181st Street. Anybody coming by car will be dropping off here on Amsterdam Avenue. Right now, as Jeff was saying, we anticipate that being somewhere between 40 to 45 cars. Please.
The drop off will be in Amsterdam Avenue in front of the building, right?
In front of the building.
Remember, the bus always go through front of the building.
Well, the bus goes in the front of the building on 181st Street, not on Amsterdam.
But the 101, yes.
But it doesn't, it does. It goes straight past though, right? This is the beauty of having sort of that additional lane over there is, like I was mentioned before, if you're a bus going down Amsterdam Avenue from north to south, you're never going to go past 182nd Street, turn in, just go that and then turn back out, right? Because it just doesn't make any sense. You're going to stick to your lane, which is in the right lane, but that does free up the entire drop-off lane along 181st to 100th on Amsterdam Avenue. And then in terms of pickup too, I think we anticipate about 25% of the kids will do some sort of after-school program. So it's also not going to be all at one time. You're not going to get one shot of, 40 cars coming into one time. A lot of kids are going to do after school. So just worth considering.
Question, please. Will the first classes that is sort of attending the school be the students from the Bronx location? Will they be then? Will the school continue in this new location with those students who live in the Bronx?
So our school in the Bronx is a middle and a high school. So this elementary school, we're recruiting these students from Washington Heights, from the neighborhoods.
So you don't foresee students coming from the Bronx?
No, we don't.
Okay,
And in the Bronx, like, similar to the ratios that we're showing you now, most of our students walk to school. And like at the middle school age, the question with families is like, can students walk home on their own? But in this circumstance, we know that if families are driving their child to school, we're gonna provide them with a map. Like if you're coming from the south, you should go this way. If you're coming from the north, you should go this way.
Good idea.
Very similar to this, right? So, I mean, this is rudimentary and we're going to work on this and figure out exactly where it works with traffic patterns. But we figure that the majority of people will be driving from the west And so if they do, they have three options over on 184th Street, 183rd Street, or 180th Street. At which point anybody that can then just come down on Amsterdam Avenue and drop right in front of the building along 181st Street or along Amsterdam Avenue. If you're coming from the Bronx, we don't think we're actually going to get any students from the Bronx, but let's say for whatever reason to do, they would just, it's very easy, go right over the Washington Bridge and just take that left turn right there before you hit that bus lane. If you're coming from the south, you would go up Audubon, go across on 181st Street, and then hit down on Amsterdam Avenue. So traffic pattern wise, we feel like it makes a lot of sense, avoiding as much congestion as you possibly can.
Just a follow-up question, if I may. If there are children coming from the Bronx, say they're walking over the bridge, will there be a crossing guard on Amsterdam Avenue? Because that's a
You almost
crazy.
anticipated our next slide.
Okay.
So, we are, again, all this is gonna be under review and in discussion with New York City DOT. But at this time, we're proposing improvements to basically Amsterdam, Audubon, and St. Nicholas along 181. If the city doesn't provide them, the school would work with the city to make sure they are provided crossing guards at all three intersections. And in the case of 181 in Amsterdam, we put there, we are also proposing, and if the school, I think, is going to sort of work with the city to implement this, what we call high visibility crosswalks. Sometimes people call them zebra crossings, because we know that some of those crosswalks at that intersection are not as high visibility as they could be, which is a way of sort of giving a signal to drivers to sort of be on the lookout for pedestrians. As we say, we don't expect a ton of, people coming from the Bronx by foot, but if it does happen, we want to be prepared for it. So we're proposing high visibility crosswalks for all four crosswalks in that intersection. The other two intersections, Audubon and St. Nicholas along 181, I think they already have high visibility crosswalks, but there's that need to redo them. I think that's something that the school and DOT would talk about. But the idea is I think the crossing guards are probably the sort of main thing here, to have a recognition that these are, major roads, and in this case, it makes all the sense in the world to propose crossing guards.
Thank you.
Two things that, number one, I think we're all thrilled with the crossing guards, obviously. Sometimes they're hard to get because it's not a great job in the world, but it's vital. It's, in fact, let me just comment, so far, I am very impressed with the thoughtfulness and all the thought that went into this, So, the other thing, which you may or may not be aware of, the DOT already has plans to improve the Washington Bridge, and it will ultimately become much more walkable. Right now, it's a horror.
I walked it, and I know.
I biked it several times.
But, so why, I'm just curious, because I'm, other colleagues of mine from my firm may be aware of this, but what's, the plan is for Washington? Widen the sidewalk, or?
It's a whole complicated thing, and in fact, we have that on our website, because we had a whole presentation. There'll be dedicated lanes and it's gonna be infinitely better.
Good to know. Time will tell how many folks from this school, but I think it's a good thing for the area in general, right? For the Bronx or Washington.
You want to add something, Isidro?
If I may, Chair. So there'll be a dedicated bike lane and also a bus lane on the bridge.
On the bridge.
So there'll be easy access for pedestrians as well as bikers.
Okay. Very good.
So just quickly finishing up, because I know we're running late on time or a little bit over. This one is the intersection of Amsterdam and Avenue, 181st Street, Audubon, looking at Audubon.
And here, since you already have like the zebra stripe at higher visibility crosswalks, the improvement we're proposing is a crossing guard. And same thing goes for St. Nick.
All right, Leo, you had something?
Yeah, just one question. So I live near a school on Nagel, and believe it or not, parents, the drop-off is not the huge issue causing traffic in the morning. It's actually the teachers looking for parking. Most of the schools have the no parking from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., dedicated for school staff. And I'm assuming with the layout of how you guys have it set up, you won't have something like that. So are you going to provide parking for teachers, or because I see it being an issue with teachers, not necessarily parents?
I didn't know that. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we have a parking lot, so we can work with the teachers in the school to have teachers park in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's, you know,
Teachers
There-
would love that.
Yeah.
Right.
I taught in a school that actually had a parking lot.
Yeah.
Oh, that
it's
was-
unusual. There is no such thing as teacher parking anymore, as you have learned. So only schools that got grandfathered. So we sometimes get inquiries from newer schools and they're like, we need that too. And it's like, it's gone. And, but it really, I think it really does depend on the school. I think charters, sometimes you have, like, I know, like it's Success, for example, they have a younger group that's maybe more public transportation oriented. So like, whereas a school down the street has a bunch of teachers arriving in cars. So it just kind of depends. I just hope, again, with all the good access at this point, that hopefully there won't be too much pressure of,
Well, the parking
of the
lot,
parking, like the parking search of like creating congestion and all of that.
Hey, I mean, let's not forget also that we have the George Washington Bridge bus terminal not too far away. So I know, for example, a lot of times there's a problem with, or a challenge with some teachers live in New Jersey. And they may not want to take transit because it's not very convenient, but. And this is, you know, sort of, we'll have to see how it plays out, but there, you can go to the George Washington Bridge bus terminal, by bus from New Jersey and walk to this site. You know, it's within striking distance per se, I'm New Jersey based teacher.
Right. But I will say I wouldn't be super optimistic. Maybe you guys have more pull with the crossing guards because it has sort of reached a crisis level, which you have probably also heard that. I mean, it was always a little challenging because you're not paid for that many hours a day, but in today's costly world, like people just don't take those jobs because nobody can live on it. So it used to be the kind of thing that it was a great job for certain people, depending on your schedule, and it's just less and less. And so there's a lot of schools that are going without crossing guards. So it would be awesome, particularly at Amsterdam, to have support, but I'm not going to be super optimistic that you're going to get the other two intersections. The newest version of DOT raised crosswalks are fantastic. We love them, but they've been a little bit limited in rollout. So, I mean, we love that you guys are asking for them because they really work. They change your feeling of your vulnerability and they really reduce it. We got one by the A train on Fort Washington, as you know, on the west side of the intersection, and it does really improve safety, and it reduces the amount of pedestrians getting hit by a turning car, et cetera. And you get visibility as a driver and as a pedestrian. It's not just for the pedestrians. We like it. It's more comfortable on both sides. So, to the extent, you know, I hope that this kind of gives a little push to that, because, I mean, as you know, you're operating at that intersection. It's a crazy intersection. The work that they're doing on the Washington Bridge will hopefully be good. I know they made the left turns from the Bronx onto Amsterdam a little bit better, in part because of our district manager pushing to make sure that we expanded the left turn capacity to head south on Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're proposing to also make sure that we're improving all the intersections, like we're certainly supportive of all of that.
I think the bus lane has worked too. I mean, you know, anecdotally, it's definitely quieter. There's
Yeah,
less honking. I mean, I've just noticed that every time I'm on the corner.
I have a question for you, Debbie. Are these raised crosswalks compatible with buses? Because I know we can't have, you know, speed humps where there are buses.
yeah, it's a good question.
Well, we'll find
I
out.
don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
don't
the
The
answer.
one on, 181 in Fort Washington is much lower and has a much more gentle slope than this.
Oh, I understand that, but.
But that's what they are, and they still make,
Well, we'll say,
But,
you know,
yeah.
either they'll say, you know, you can't have it because there are buses there, or they'll say, you know, like you said, it's not quite a speed hump. But I agree that, and unfortunately, the one that you're talking about, the only one in the neighborhood is 181st and Fort Washington. That's, you know, been so worked around there that it's hard to get, most of it isn't even airing. So, you know, I barely noticed
Just change the hump.
Leo, thank you for bringing that up, the parking space. One very important thing is that professors, teachers need to have parking space. Two things. Between 180 out of an Amsterdam, it's allowed double parking anytime. People park no matter what. Out of the same thing.
Yeah.
Also, and out of 181st, 182nd. So you guys need to have at least how you can, because teachers, they're not gonna take public transportation. I guarantee you, they're not gonna take. They're gonna take cab, they're gonna drive, because it's very, very uncomfortable for them. I know a lot of teachers, they're frustrated and they don't wanna even teach because they have parking space. So I don't know how you guys gonna deal with, but.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing, like I said, we have 170 spots, so we have more than adequate
Yeah,
parking for the
okay,
school.
so that's good, that's good, that's great.
I just want to say, I was invited or asked if I could come. There's another land use committee on Wednesday. I won't be able, I may have mentioned this to you, but I just want to mention to everyone. I unfortunately won't be able to attend that because I have another public hearing that I already had an obligation to attend. So please, I think you will be here on Wednesday, is that right? Or you will?
Unfortunately not, I'm traveling, yeah, but.
So I just, in advance, if anybody here is at that meeting on Wednesday, keep attending. So I think if there's any questions that you can't answer, we can always take questions and then provide a follow-up. But yeah, apologies in advance to the land use committee. I wish I could be there too, but I unfortunately have a conflict.
We'll, certainly share, and I think, land use knows that we were here and that you were here and all that, they'll be covering other things, and I think that they'll presumably be getting more into the heart of the BSA and the school use, so it'll have a different tenor regardless.
Yeah, I think Rich will be here, I think Dan will be here.
Yeah, so I think that they'll be able to address some of the land use issues and zoning issues.
Non-committee members.
Hi, Debbie. I believe OC has her hand raised for a question.
Sorry, let me just stop. Sorry. I didn't get out of the share. Apologize. Okay, go ahead, OC.
Hi, thanks. I'm sorry I came in late. So I'm curious about the plan to, if my understanding that's what you guys are talking about, the plan to have the drop-off, the kids drop-off, that is not directly in front of the school entrance? Is that what it is?
Yes, so the idea is to have the drop off along Amsterdam Avenue. Because of the bus lane, we couldn't practically have any sort of drop off along 181st Street. And so the idea is to have a security guard effectively be staying there during both arrival and departure, and having a 15-to-1 ratio between adult to kids, then take them into the school at one time. Now, keep in mind what they'll basically see in terms of streetscape is you have hotel along Amsterdam Avenue as you're getting dropped off. As you inch closer south, you'll be in front of a hotel with their own security guard there for their own personal reasons or their own hotel reasons. Then as you turn the corner, it's a bank. So it's a bank and a bank. The bank always has security guards out there as well, right? So listen, from my perspective as a developer, what we're trying to do is beautify the streetscape. So right now, what we have is hotel entrance, boutique hotel entrance along Amsterdam Avenue. You have kid drop off, K-5. You have a bank, and you have a school, right? Okay. So in my mind, this corner is going to be the best corner you can have. Like, it's going to have the most vibrancy. It's going to be the best thing the community can kind of appreciate, and as safe as it can be.
So my question related to this is how far you are proposing to drop off kids in relation to the actual entrance of the school in terms of foot, like how many feet?
It's in the design, it's in the diagram. I don't want to misspeak. I think it's either 75 feet or 100 feet, one or the other. I know our whole width is 150 feet, so I think it's 75 to the midpoint, maybe 100.
And you are also proposing a plan to, oversee that happening the way you are proposing, right? If it's 100 feet away from the entrance, you have some sort of a plan so parents are not just dropping off kids at the entrance of the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, this is, like I was saying, I have an example with my kids. So the way that we do it, after COVID, we're not allowed into the actual school anymore. So what we do is we drop all the kids off in front. They line up with the teachers beforehand, and then everybody's escorted in at the same time. And it goes down the entire block. You know, we have you know, my kids, it's like 100 kids, 200 kids by car. And then it's just like, it's the whole block. But then you just have them all lined up. So it's all just an array of kids. And then each one is kind of brought in by the teachers.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time with us and, okay.
So I'm the executive director for the Washington High Speed. This project has been practically something that has brought life to a block that was filled with graffiti, abandoned cars for a long, long time. As we all know, there was a gas station there. I've been part of the community for Washington Heights for close to over 50 years. This project, along with a restaurant, Bank Reserva, which is the first Dominican-owned bank, has brought many, many pedestrians to the area, thus creating more vibrancy and bringing lots of business to the area. I truly believe that if given the opportunity, this school will be great. We know that there are schools around, but this particular school will be very special. And take into account that there will be more teachers, that also is going to add to the vibrancy of our local community, a community that has long been neglected, to some extent abused by some very horrible circumstances that we all faced. Now that this is going to be a clean and vibrant block, it will be a plus for the community. If I had the opportunity to vote, I will vote in favor, but of course, taking into account that I'm executive director of the bid, this will be a conflict, but I will definitely support this school. And Brian, you have done an excellent job in bringing more vibrancy to our community, and I thank you.
Thank you, Cedric.
Thank you, Daddy.
So to your point, it's also going to bring more business to your bid.
Correct. Hopefully those mom and pop shops that were affected by the bus lane, they were hurt to some extent. We hope that those teachers that come in, parents, they can also buy from our mom and pop shops that have struggled for a long time.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you all for the time. Very much
Thanks for
appreciated.
visiting us.
Thank you.
Oh, let me give you this.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
All right. Take care. Good luck. Bye. Bye.
Yes. I have a question. Sure. I don't know. The school is there for a number of years. And the drop off lane continues. I know in other places, they started to build barriers or like block off that exit end of that lane. So the car would not turn in. You know what I'm saying? If this is it, it'd be like a hump this. And then another hump. They have.
Bear with us one sec.
And they also have those various spots. I don't know if it's allowed. The obviously protocol, something to think about. Really safe, then you would give her.
So that's kind of it for our agenda tonight. I wanted to.
I'm just giving my apologies. I just had the meeting on Wednesday. Please, if you're
like we've kind of had a streak, I guess, a little bit light agendas, and again, would have liked to have a little bit more tonight, you know, on this same topic, but hopefully we'll pick up a little bit more in March on that. But the only other thing, you know, one thing that obviously comes up all the time, because it's just a perennial issue over the decades, is the congestion on Fort Washington in front of the hospital between 165 and 168. And it seems to be having like a little resurgence. So yeah, so I may, if I can kind of get the hospital here, et cetera, like it might be time to dive back in, because it's sort of feeling like, you know, the NYPD doesn't tend to have the resources to put traffic control, but NYP and CUIMC are huge institutions, and maybe they can take care of it. It's one more human being, you know, per shift. But
Question about that, just.
yeah, so just let me,
Sure.
all right, because I do, sorry, want to wrap it up. I feel like I'm not the only sick one and all of that. So, Jim, I'm just saying that maybe next month we can try to bring things together about the Fort Washington 165th to 168th in front of the hospital thing, because it is having a little resurgence, and I've been getting, you know, I've gotten missives. I mean, we always do, and it's come and gone, but when DOT.
You got a missive from me?
I got a missive from you, I got a missive from somebody who wrote out like their plan, but and again, it comes up a lot. It's just that at one point DOT had like added that little like mid-block light. And so at that time, I wanted to see that settle, but then here we are again. And I don't think we can really, it just seems like it's one of those spots that they just need to have somebody out there, because people have to turn left into the hospital. That's all there is to it.
They should have a machine gun.
Anyway, so that's, but like, please, if people have, you know, hearing things and would like to propose agenda items, I got an email, but I just didn't see it because I didn't look at my personal emails during the workday today, from MTA saying, oh, well, we're going to give you the congestion pricing presentation tonight, but like, is there something you wanted us to talk about? And I was like seeing it at like 6 or 5:30. And then, so I wasn't sure if Alberto would be here, but maybe that'll come back.
This presentation was extremely well done and well organized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a sharp character.
Yeah, and he answered the question properly.
And we didn't know, he said he didn't know, which I appreciate too.
I think years ago when they came to the land use committee, we were equally impressed, and you know, and then in fact, apparently the hotel part is thriving. So
That's great. But there were a lot of issues with that site because of brown waste and.
Well, most of it actually had to do.
No,
with
it was
some very strange zoning. That's all it was.
Right, wasn't there?
The guy thought it was belonged to him. Nobody was using it, so he.
Well, not only that, Obi Bing was saying years ago when he was still alive and on the community board, that you have groundwater infiltration because of the gas tanks that leak into the whole area. You got to clean that up, and he cleaned it up. Anyway, that's history.
All right, guys.
You had a question.
Sorry, I want to have you, and then actually we have Raymond Tillman online, so, but we're going to go to Fred first.
Go, Fred.
Yeah.
I just had a question about that block you were talking about, because actually I drive it every day, so sorry, and have some data. It's a lot of deliveries. So the question is, can the hospital take deliveries from midnight to 6? Because that's the.
I mean,
and everything else.
yeah, I mean, we can talk about it if we put it on the agenda, but they have over time said that they have like tried to restack their loading, because they do have a couple of locations and they do have the option to move things into different shifts and night and stuff like that. But I don't know if there's more opportunities, but it's,
Will be on the agenda next week.
I'm thinking I will add it to the agenda, yeah.
Because again, and the issue that bothered me was just the craziness in that a lady sort of, nothing was moving because the northbound traffic wasn't moving and everything was all blocked. And then a lady pulled into the middle of the intersection and tried to make a right turn, and nothing southbound was moving. So finally, after the bus driver was pounding on the window, she finally backed up. But
So just a minor point, Jack Vogel, who's the on-site manager resident of River Arts for many, many years.
He used to be on the board.
He was on the board. I ran into him and I said, how's it going along Riverside Drive West? He said, you know what? It's going really well. They're almost done. They're going to close ahead of schedule, I think. And nobody's complaining. So that's really good news. They've got the concrete roadway done. They're working on the sidewalks. I said, Jack, no complaints? He said, no, we're really happy. So kudos to DOT, the contractor, whatever they got the contractor to do, they're doing it. And that ties into what you're talking about, because once that's cleaned up, you've got 160 parking spots or 60 parking spots along Riverside Driveway.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, so it all backs up to that area and.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. We also just want to see what it looks like in the whole 158th and whatever that yeah.
And your block where they scoot around to come down and go up to the bridge.
All right.
Here's some good news for a change.
As a part of the agenda for maybe next one, can we talk about the loading zone issue as well and just where DOT is with?
Yeah, we can try, like. We can try. Yeah, I mean, it's just more of a question of like. What happened? It was supposed to be residential. It doesn't seem like that's what happened in CB12. Mr. Tillman?
Yes, good evening. Did you have a chance to look over the email I sent you, Deb? It outlined the 4 very simple things that ought to be done to improve traffic substantially on Fort Washington between 165th and 8th. You wish me to briefly?
No, I don't want to do it at this time. I'd like to put it properly on the agenda so we can have the hospital and the medical center here. So as I was saying, we can look for it on the March agenda. I did not add it for this month.
May I make a suggestion?
But I can certainly, if you can't make it back next month, I have what you sent me and I will share it with the committee and get it on the record at that time. I mean, again, we're not, we.
Very used to working with community boards and the leisurely way things get done. This is so simple and straightforward. I have tried to contact Dr. Donnelly, the head of the hospital, and he ignored my 2 letters. I think what could move this along a bit is if Community Board 12, with me in tow if you wish, talk to the borough president's office just to make them aware that you want some action, and to talk to the borough president, rather the DOT, NYC DOT borough president head, and get them familiar with it so they can add their more or less official voices to possibly make an impression on the hospital. Now, there are some costs involved, though these are really low-cost improvements. It involves 1 policeman, 1 traffic control agent, and it's conceivable that the hospital could cover these costs very readily by maybe using 0.5% of their advertising budget. These would do far more for hospital attendance and retention of patients than their advertising procedures. So you perhaps can say this to him more gently than I can, but.
Well, it has, Mr. Tillman, it has been an ongoing conversation over the course of decades, because I'm sure it preceded me by a fair amount. And it's one we've sort of struggled with and had ongoing dialogue. But we really haven't engaged with it in a few years, and not since, again, DOT made 1 change and it just didn't seem to help enough. So again, but I do want to add it as a proper agenda item. And again, the community board acts by resolution. And so that's how it would need to start. If we decided to come to a resolution, then it would come out of this committee. It would go to the full board for vote. And at that point, it goes to DOT or to NYPD, because remember, DOT no longer has enforcement capacity of any sort on the street. And we typically, the head of government relations for the hospital is often at our meetings when we have something relevant on the agenda. So we hopefully will be in good shape for March. So I hope you can come back and join us then, but rest assured, if for some reason there's a conflict and you can't make it, again, I will distribute that as part of the materials of the, at that time.
I should be able to make it. And again, without beating a dead horse, the 4 things I recommended, by the way, I'm a very experienced traffic engineer, are simple and straightforward and shouldn't involve a great deal of analysis and back and forth.
Yes.
You're right. No, I appreciate you taking the time. All right. With this,
I move we adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn. I'm gonna second
No,
it.
I'm sorry, I raised my hand for like,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was your old
no,
hand.
no, it's a
Okay,
new
go ahead,
hand.
Rosie.
Sorry. Okay, I don't know if it's an old business or new business. I would say it's probably an old business. Asking the committee to request the Amber School to come back and suggest some you know, solving problem, some map to solve the issue with the traffic here.
Sorry, OC, I'm going to cut you off because you missed the beginning of the meeting. They're coming in March. I got to them too late this month. It wasn't fair. So they just said.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. And hopefully school and the square will come, because they'll have a small program that they're going to add to the building next year. And I'm also hoping that we could make it a charter school palooza and have Zeta, but I'm not sure if they'll come, but just to get some understanding of where people think it can go from here, given where it's at.
Okay, I will. And the item on the agenda is to do with like the parking lot going on here and suggestion for mitigations, just like the other school. I was really impressed with the school that it's gonna open up at right next to the hotel or the hotel. Again, I missed the beginning. So if the school can propose to have like, you know, drop off 100 feet away from the entrance to the building, yay. So I'm assuming that's why they're coming in March.
Well, yeah, yes, that's why, yes, we're getting all sorts of reports, obviously from up by you. It has gotten worse this year from the fact that 218th is now jammed up because of Zeta on the other side. And again, in anticipation of there being a few more kids next year, again, at that location, to just give them an opportunity to just talk to us about like how they're thinking about it. I think they were actually pretty engaged in the beginning, but
they're no longer engaged, yeah, but okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, we'll just have to see, because the fact is, and what we had with success is with a non-engaged school is like, but they're there in a place, on a street, and they exist, and it's a street, and it doesn't have the capacity. So, but we can't make them evacuate the building. So we just like, I'm not
asking for that.
I'm not going to be like jumping down there, but I do want to hear like, how are they thinking about it? Because now we are a few years into it, and it's not pretty every morning, and just like, where do we go from here? Is sort of my idea. Like, I'm not thinking it's a I've been hearing from inward owners now for, a while. They obviously were worried about it when they heard it announced. And so the time has come, but we are.
Reiterate my motion to adjourn.
All right.
Now that Oxy's done.
Okay.
What is the date of your March meeting?
Meeting adjourned.
First Monday.
It's the first Monday.
Monday.
Okay, thank you. Great.
All right. Thanks all. Good night, Mary. Bye, OC.
Good night, Debbie. Good night, everyone.
Bye, Leo. Feel better.
Thank you very much.
Maria Luna, hi. Benny, bye. Hi, bye.
Maria Luna was there?